Yes guys, welcome back to the channel. We're almost a third of the way through the Premier League season. Can you believe it? It's another international break. It's another depressing couple of weeks as we wait for the real football to start. What a few freaking weeks it has been. Manchester City are in crisis. Pep Guardiola, for the first time in his illustrious managerial career, has lost 4 games in a row, albeit one in the Champions League and one in the Cup no one fucking cares about. Arsenal's title hopes have almost vanished into thin air as they are now laying 9 points behind leaders Liverpool. Erik ten Hag has left. Ruud van Nistelrooy took over as caretaker manager and finished with 3 wins and a draw. Ruben Amorim starts after the international break, and it's all fucking going on. Let's take a quick look at the Premier League table before we get into the point of today's video, which is to review how each team from the bottom to the top, that's what she said, is doing. Right, so let's start right at the top. Liverpool are out in front with 28 points. 5 points ahead of second place Manchester City. Now, get this. The difference between third place and ninth place is a mere 1 point. So let's fire through this list. In third is Chelsea, fourth is Arsenal, fifth is Nottingham Forest, sixth is Brighton, all sharing 19 points. Then we have Fulham, Newcastle and Aston Villa on 18 points. 2 points just behind them, Tottenham Hotspurs and Brentford. Bournemouth have 15 points in 12. Manchester United have 15 points and they're in 13th. 14th are West Ham with 12 points. 15th are Leicester with 10. Joint with Everton. Then Ipswich are out on their own in 17th with 8 points. Crystal Palace have 7, Wolves have 6, and Southampton are still rooted to the bottom. Well, now are rooted to the bottom of the table with 4 points. So let's get into it. Before I do start reviewing the teams, please, if you are liking the content, feel free, not obliged, to like, subscribe, and press the little bell notification to get updates of releases of Premier League related videos. So without further ado, let's get into the crux of the matter and start right at the bottom of the table. It is of course Southampton, who sit bottom with 4 points, 1 win, 1 draw, 9 losses. Southampton's biggest problem this season so far is they're just fucking not able to score. 7 goals scored in 11 matches, 21 conceded. Russell Martin, of course, is dying on his sword of playing his type of football, and he will not move from it. And look what it done for Vincent Kompany. It got him a top job in Germany at Bayern Munich. Maybe Russell Martin is just waiting for an similar opportunity. I think everything's gone to script for what we expect for Southampton. Russell Martin was never going to budge away from his football, and you're simply not going to be good enough if you don't have the players, and you're not going to challenge like you need to in the Premier League. They're rooted to the bottom of the league with 4 points, and so far going to script, I would say. In 19th, we have Wolves, who secured their very first win of the season on the weekend. The problem with Wolves, the biggest problem with Wolves, is they are leaking goals for fun. They've conceded the most goals in the league. Going forward and attacking, they're absolutely fucking brilliant. They scored 16 goals, which is more than Man United, more than Bournemouth, more than Newcastle, the same as Fulham, more than Nottingham Forest, who are fucking 5th, for God's sake. But they're just leaking goals for fun. I did think they were going to struggle this season, but in the last few weeks, I have started to see some positive signs to say they may be able to move clear off that relegation zone come the next international break. Takes me nicely on to Crystal Palace, who secured their first win of the season a couple of weeks ago against Tottenham. Crystal Palace are definitely improving and they look better. I think the start was difficult. They weren't playing the free-flowing football that they were playing towards the end of last year, which of course is understandable after they lost their key asset in Elise. But recent weeks have suggested that their form will start to improve. Of course, they got battered before the international break 3-0 by Fulham. But I expect Palace to continue to improve and continue to pick up results. They haven't been bad so far this season. In 17th, we have Ipswich on 8 points, who secured their very first win of the season, just like Crystal Palace, against the inconsistent and Postecoglou managed Tottenham Hotspurs. I'm all in for Ipswich. They're good at attacking. They're not so great at the back. They like to entertain. And what you see is what you get. They've actually drawn 5 matches and secured a win. And some of their draws have been very impressive, let's say that. With Ipswich, I think they're doing slightly better than I did think they were going to be doing at this stage of the season. But let's be honest, if they didn't beat Spurs on the weekend, which was kind of just... It was Spurs who lost that match. They'd still be in the bottom 3. They'd still be rooted near the bottom. They'd be in 19th, overtaken by Wolves, and Palace would have moved out of the relegation zone. But so far, so good for Ipswich. Kieran McKenna's one goal this season purely is to be better than 3 teams in that division, and thus far, he is better than 3 teams so far. Next, we have Everton, who are 16th on 10th, and I'm going to combine them with Leicester City, who sit on 10 points as well. Everton, of course, lost 4 matches in a row to start off the season, and their form since then has improved massively. I don't expect any trouble this season for Sean Dyche, simply because I think Ipswich, Wolves, Southampton, and maybe one of the teams just above are going to be dragged into that relegation zone. I think Everton will have enough this season to stay up, and so far, so good from Sean Dyche's men. Leicester City, I would say the same as Sean Dyche's Everton. They look like they are a Premier League team. They look a cut above what Ipswich and Southampton have to offer in terms of the teams that have been promoted. And I think they'll be just fine this season so far. Again, everything going to plan for Steve Cooper's men. Now we come on to the troubled guys. West Ham United, who are sitting 14th with 12 points. And it's not looking good, brav. It is not looking good for West Ham at all. Their defence is shambolic. They play a very high line, which is really, really easily beaten. They're involved in matches which are just pure chaos at points. And for all the summer signings that they did make, and how I thought that actually they did have the best summer transfer window, it hasn't translated, whether that's the signings themselves or the fact that they've had to adjust to a new manager in Lopetegui. So far, it's not looking good for West Ham, and they really, really need an upturn in results and form after the international break if Lopetegui is to keep his job. Although I don't think he is in risk because of the money and the backing they've provided him. But watch this space, because West Ham really needs to start improving. In 13th place is Manchester United, tied with Bournemouth on 12th place with 15 points. Man United, of course, got rid finally of Erik ten Hag. It came 6 months too late. He should have gone straight after the FA Cup final, despite him bringing back another trophy to Old Trafford. He's just never seemed like he's up to the level. His signings have been poor. Man United were moving into this new era under Jim Radcliffe, and another manager should have came at the same time. But positive signs, we have Ruben Amorim taking the helm, and his first match will be against Ipswich after the international break. Absolutely adored by the Sporting Lisbon fans, and rightly so. What he has done with them in terms of their budget and what he's achieved is absolutely fucking amazing. And then to sign off in the most drop mic way you've ever seen by beating Manchester United's rivals, Manchester City, the champions of England, the 4 in a row champions of England, 4-1, albeit the match should have been out of sight within the first 20 minutes for Manchester City, but they wasted chances. Sporting came back and kicked the living shit out of them. I'm looking forward to this adventure under Amorim. It may be the first time in recent history, or in my entire lifetime, that we see a United back three. Do they have the players? I don't know. But I'm just eager to see exactly what happens after Amorim takes over. In 12s are Bournemouth, who got some fucking amazing results. They beat Manchester City, they beat Arsenal, had a cracker of a match against Brentford, but unfortunately were on the losing side. Bournemouth so far have been really good, exactly what I expected. If you remember back to this time last season, I think it was around the 8th or 9th match, or maybe even the 10th match, they still hadn't got a point. So their upturn in form this season, to say that they're 12th, they're on 15 points, they're one win away from going into the top half of the table. They've been playing really good football. It looks like they haven't even missed Solanke one bit. Evan Nilsson is picking up form, he's scoring goals. Everything is looking good for Bournemouth. Next in 11th we have Brentford. Man, Brentford are the team you want to watch this season. Just listen to this. So 11 games played, 5 wins, 1 draw and 5 losses. We're not dealing in draws here, boys. We're either winning or we're fucking losing. We don't care. 22 goals scored, 22 goals conceded. This is beautiful. This is football. We attack, we let in goals, we'll try and score fucking more goals than you. Everyone, including myself, thought Brentford were really going to struggle this season after even Tony spread his wings to the money-rich land of Saudi Arabia. But I tell you what, Brentford have been fantastic this season. Mbeumo has really stepped up to the plate. Johan Visa is looking brilliant. And overall as a team, they're just looking great. I love Thomas Frank as a manager. I think he's brilliant. And Brentford are getting their just worth, as they are 11th in the league and looking very good. Next we have the inconsistent Ange Postecoglou managed Tottenham Hotspurs. 1 week beating Manchester City, beating the living daylights out of rivals Aston Villa, and then they go and lose at home and provide Ipswich with their first victory of the season, lose to Crystal Palace, give them their first victory of the season. It must absolutely drive Spurs fans up the wall. It must be so frustrating for Ange Postecoglou, but I've seen this story fucking a million times. I've seen this play out every time exactly the same. It's Tottenham. It's always the same. So far, if they had won those matches they were supposed to win against Ipswich, against Palace, they'd be sitting pretty in third in the league. But instead, they've been inconsistent since the start of the season, and this is just same old Tottenham that we're seeing so far. Nothing out of the ordinary. Next we have Aston Villa, who are in 9th with 18 points. But remember when I said at the start of this video, there's 1 point separating 3rd through to 9th. So league standings are a bit irrelevant between those positions at the moment. It's been more of the same from Aston Villa as last season. They are letting in more goals than I thought they would have let in. They had a lead against Tottenham, of course, that they dropped. They played well against Liverpool. There's nothing to worry about Villa. I don't think they're going to have a hangover, as people suggested, from their achievements last season. I just think some matches they've been unlucky. Watkins hasn't truly found 100% his form from last season. So at the moment, I think Villa are going to plan. I think their season's been okay so far, but I'd like to see them push on in the next part after the international break. Then we have Newcastle, who are sitting in 8th, who've secured very impressive back-to-back victories. Otherwise, they were looking a little bit troublesome, if I'm totally honest. But back-to-back victories against rivals Arsenal and an impressive 3-1 victory away at Nottingham Forest says much about the team, and they are on the ascendancy, which leads me nicely to Fulham, who are sitting 7th in the table. They've had a recent upturn in form as well. After a shaky few weeks, they've now secured back-to-back victories, and Marco Silva's team are looking on the ascendancy again. Emil Smith-Rowe is looking brilliant. Harry Wilson, where the fuck has he come from? Off the bench twice, 3 goals in the last 2 games. He could have had a double in the last match again, but unfortunately his goal was ruled out correctly for VAR. He touched the ball with his hand, and you're not allowed to do that as a footballer. Right, let's go into the top 6. Sitting in 6th place on goal difference is Brighton. Again, another upturn on form after a few shaky weeks and a few shaky results. Brighton have looked really good. I'm so impressed with their manager. I'm so impressed with their team. They look really good. They look well oiled. They handed Man City and Pep Guardiola the historic 4th loss in a row. And Brighton are sitting pretty and looking very good. Can they maintain that for the remainder of the season? It remains to be seen, but so far, so good from Brighton. And then we move on to position number 5, Nottingham Forest. My number 1 bet for if it wasn't the 3 promoted teams getting relegated, Nottingham Forest would be one of the 3 to go down. Now, it's still possible mathematically that they could go down. They could be dragged down all the way down to the bottom. But my God, what a good start it's been from Nottingham Forest. They've been absolutely brilliant, built on the foundation of an absolutely solid defence and a Kiwi striker who has resurged back to the top of the tree with some fantastic, just good old fucking fashioned centre forward play. Absolutely brilliant. Chris Wood's been phenomenal. Their defence is really, really something to behold. They've made some shrewd signings in the last few years, and Nottingham Forest have been the surprise by far, by an absolute mile, the surprise package of the season so far. Whether Nuno Espirito Santo's men can keep it up for the remainder of the season, I don't know. I can't see it. If they manage to get a top 10 finish, it will be absolutely unbelievable, let me tell you that. But I'm all here for Forest. They've proved me wrong already. I don't really need to see the remainder of the season. They've been brilliant so far. So kudos to the boys from Forest. In 4th place, we have Arsenal. 9 points off the top of the league, which of course, we have 27 games left to play. Doesn't mean that they're completely out of the title. But Arsenal are not looking like the Arsenal of previous years. And I think more than ever in the last few weeks, we've seen their lack of a clinical striker, a proper centre forward has cost them very, very dearly. And I think this is the season it might show more than ever, because I do think you have the likes of Chelsea, Forest, Brighton, Newcastle, and hopefully a resurgent Manchester United who are going to trouble Arsenal, whereas before Arsenal were heads and shoulders above them. There might be games that last season against teams that they would win that they're not going to win this season. And I just think that so far it's been a very disappointing start to Arsenal in a season that I did predict them to kick on and win the championship. I don't know. They haven't made the best of starts so far this season, but we're only 11 games in, so who knows. Next we have, I would say for me, after Nottingham Forest, is the second surprise team of the season. Next we come to 3rd position, and my surprise package after Forest this season, it's got to be Chelsea. How they have surprised me this season under Maresca. When he was appointed and when he came in, it was an absolute fucking circus. Todd Bowley was just living out some kind of American Housewives sitcom shit that you see on television, on Dave Comedy, whatever it may be, on Comedy Central. And insert Maresca, who just brought Premier League football back to Leicester. And let me tell you what, he has been fucking brilliant. Chelsea have been really good. He has a first 11. He has a cup first 11. Everything looks like it's in harmony. Palmer has picked off where he left off last season. Nicholas Jackson looks like he's slightly improved. Pedro Neto's definitely given them another edge. And I think with Reece James coming back, Cucurella's form, Chelsea are looking very good. My only doubt for Chelsea this season is I really, really don't think Robert Sanchez is anywhere near the level of a keeper the team of Chelsea's calibre should have? And will the lack of a very clinical centre forward cost Chelsea? Nicholas Jackson, for as good as he is, and he is improving, I don't know if he's a 20-25 goals a season striker. Now we get on to the top two. Manchester City sitting in second place on 23 points after a torrid run of results. Let's be honest, only two of those matches were in the Premier League off the four they've lost. But it's just the fact we're not used to seeing City lose this many on a bounce. We're not used to seeing Guardiola lose this many on a bounce. And Manchester City, without Rodri, look decidedly weaker than we've ever seen. Kovacic, for as great a player he is, and trust me, I really, really like him. I never, ever wanted Madrid to get rid of him. When they did, he's a good on the ball. He's good in tight areas. He's got good vision. He's a good passer. But he's not Rodri. He really isn't Rodri. And Kevin De Bruyne is in and out. They've got injuries kind of all over the pitch. Kyle Walker, anytime he's played this season, has really been found out. Whether that's just because he's not fully fit or what, I'm not sure. But I thought Kyle Walker's legs were leaving him and his eyes at the end of last season. And I think we are maybe possibly seeing the back end of his career here. With Man City, I'm not sure. Up to obviously the last couple of results, it was bang on. It was Man City, as we knew, 7 wins, 2 draws. But the last 2 results has given us something to think about. There's no doubt Guardiola's going to pick this up, but I hope, for Guardiola's sake and for Manchester City's sake, that they need to sort this injury crisis out real soon. But then, let's heap all the praise on Arne Slot's Liverpool. 11 matches, 9 wins, 1 draw, and that one sole loss, the surprising 1-0 loss to Nottingham Forest at home. Arne Slot, time at Liverpool thus far has been nothing short of fucking remarkable. I didn't think they were going to have a massive drop off this season because Klopp was leaving him a very, very good team. Yes, they didn't really sign anyone of any significance in the summer. They went really hard in for Zubimendi and never came out with him. But in Gravenberch, they've got a very, very capable number 6. But Arne Slot, what he's done so far with Liverpool and how he's got them playing in a slightly slower build-up and attack than Jurgen Klopp had them, I think they've been absolutely brilliant. Van Dijk's been fantastic. Konate's been fantastic. In Curtis Jones, they've got someone who's really, really improving. Mo Salah looks like he's back to his best. Luis Diaz looks like he's back to his best. And if he's not performing, they've got Cody Gakpo. Liverpool can take this to the wire this season, I believe, with the title challenge. They've got depth in their squad for fun. They've got a good midfield. They've got a good attack. The only question might be is if one of their main defenders are Van Dijk and Alexander. Even Trent Alexander, they've got Bradley for backup. But if Van Dijk or Konate are injured for a significant amount of time, what kind of effect will that have on them? But Arne Slot's been absolutely fantastic. Top of the league, top of the Champions League group. My hat's off to Arne Slot. He's been absolutely fucking tremendous. Well, there we go, guys. There's my review of the Premier League after almost a third of the way through the season. Please don't quick mass me here. I know we are not officially a third of the way through the season, but we nearly are, and it's the international break, and quite frankly, I wanted to come in here and fucking talk about something, so I did. If you are liking the content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell notification, and I will catch you next week when we do predictions for match day 12.